When you saw Beyonce Solange and Jay-Z and the security in the elevator thumping, what was your reaction to that?
I have to tell you, I laughed so hard. I laughed so hard because, you know, if you know Solange, that's Solange. That's Solange. You just never know what you're gonna get. Firecracker. Don't know where she gets that from.
Looks like things between Beyonce and Solange might not be as picture perfect as we've all been led to believe. Word on the block is their former stepdad, Richard Lawson, just dropped some eyebrow-raising claims about the sisters, and it's got people talking. Rumor has it, Beyonce wasn't exactly the sweetest big sis back in the day, and the scars from those childhood moments might still be lingering in their relationship right now. See, the world sees these two as flawless, angel-like icons, but behind the scenes, there's been tension brewing for years. So what could Beyonce have done to shake Solange up that badly? And does Matthew Knowles have his fingerprints all over this drama? Here's where it gets even messier. Tina Knowles apparently made sure Richard couldn't spill too much, adding a tight confidentiality clause to their divorce settlement. Yup, Richard reportedly had to sign an NDA, straight up banning him from ever speaking on her kids or grandkids. Reports even say they locked in a full-blown non-disparagement agreement, basically promising to play nice publicly, only making statements they both approved, and never trash-talking each other's children, grandkids, or their partners. Now, if everything was really all love in the family, why lock it down this hard? Something's definitely not adding up. Now, I'm not sure if Richard's comments technically count as speaking ill, but I'll let you decide, because this is straight up scorching. See, not everyone knows this, but Solange wasn't always the cool, composed queen we see today. Back in the day, she was caught up in all kinds of trouble. And no, it wasn't just because she liked to stir the pot. There was a deeper reason. The truth? Their dad, Matthew Knowles, had tunnel vision for Beyonce. She was his golden child, his project, his everything. From the jump, Matthew was grooming Beyonce to be a superstar, and compared to that, Solange was barely even on his radar. I'm not saying Matthew was completely absent, but it's clear Solange had to fight for any slice of his attention, and that can mess a kid up. No wonder she kept finding herself in messy situations. And let's be real, Matthew didn't exactly handle it like a pro. Thankfully, Mama Tina stepped in before things went completely left. Tina was smart enough to get Solange help early, signing her up for therapy so she could deal with the pressure of living in Beyonce's shadow. Tina even admitted Solange was 5 years younger, and Beyonce was already the little superstar in our city, so she took them to counseling, partly so the counselor could help Beyonce be more sensitive to her sister, because when they were little, Beyonce couldn't stand her for a minute. That move made a big difference. Therapy helped Beyonce understand what Solange was dealing with, and it gave Solange a fighting chance to grow into her own. Eventually, she left those wild child days behind. But let's not pretend Matthew gets the credit. He was too busy building a megastar, even if it meant sacrificing his younger daughter's childhood in the process. It's no shocker that Solange rides tight with her mom, but keeps her guard up around her dad. As she grew older, the vibe with Matthew didn't exactly improve. In fact, by the time she hit high school, the gap between them was still wide. Meanwhile, Beyonce's group, Destiny's Child, was exploding, topping charts, winning awards, and only getting bigger, especially with Matthew as their manager. When Solange started high school, Matthew tried sliding her into the group, but she wasn't having it. She made it clear she wanted her own lane, not just to be the other Knowles sister. At first, it felt like Matthew was molding her into a Beyonce 2.0, which only piled on the pressure, especially with outsiders constantly comparing the two. Solange even spoke on it in her track God-Given Name, where she sang, "I'm not becoming expectations, I'm not her and never will be. Two girls gone in different directions striving towards the same galaxy. Let my starlight shine on its own. No, I'm no sister, I'm just my God-given name." That was her way of saying, "Stop trying to fit me in Beyoncé's box." She had spent years in her sister's shadow, so it made total sense she wanted to break out and prove herself. The talent was in her blood, no doubt, so she decided to chase her own music career. But here's the kicker. When Solange finally tried to make her mark, Matthew didn't take her seriously at all. Let's not forget, he had poured everything into Beyoncé from day one, while Solange was left to fight for scraps of attention. Matthew sure didn't give Solange the same all-in push he gave Beyoncé, and that's a fact. Maybe he was too locked in on Beyoncé's rise to handle another career. Maybe he didn't think Solange had the star power. Or maybe, deep down, he was still salty she turned down Destiny's Child. We may never know the exact reason, but one thing is crystal clear. He never backed her like he backed Beyoncé. A lot of folks believe that's exactly why Solange's career never soared to the same global heights. Don't get it twisted. Solange has built her own lane, dropped critically acclaimed projects, and stacked up awards. But Beyoncé, she's in a stratosphere of her own, and there's still a crowd out there who only know Solange as Beyoncé's sister, even though her talent is undeniable. Over the years, fans have pointed out that Beyoncé's massive success wasn't just luck. It was years of Matthew's laser-focused management. Some people even drop bold comments like, "Hot take, Solange better than Beyoncé," and "I'm sorry, but Solange is infinitely more talented than Beyoncé." You can imagine how that kind of talk could fuel some family tension. And honestly, it's no wonder if Solange still holds a little grudge. This is a family that usually keeps their business airtight, but Matthew, he's the one who can't seem to stop spilling tea and dragging out family drama that probably should have stayed locked away. Case in point, that infamous elevator showdown between Solange and Jay-Z? Yeah, that's the kind of mess that sticks forever. After that elevator chaos, Beyoncé, Jay-Z, and Solange tried to calm the storm with a joint statement, saying, "The most important thing is that our family has worked through it." Jay and Solange each assume their share of responsibility for what has occurred. They both acknowledge their role in this private matter that has played out in the public. They both have apologized to each other, and we have moved forward as a united family. Sounds neat and tidy, right? But then, Matthew hit the Wendy Williams show and started talking about it anyway. That was a huge embarrassment for Solange, who can't stand it when people air out her personal business. If she wanted the world to know, she'd be the one to tell it, but her dad just couldn't keep it zipped. And honestly, that's part of why her relationship with him has always felt off balance. Still, to her credit, Solange did try to mend things. In an interview, she admitted reaching out to him, saying she wanted to sort out my adolescent and young adult years because there was still so much she needed to understand. She even confessed their relationship was not always very good. That's a pretty raw thing to admit publicly, and it shows she was willing to put in the work, even if the wounds ran deep. But here's where it gets even more tangled, because Richard Lawson's recent comments might explain exactly why this father-daughter bond never fully healed. In his latest tea spill, Richard hinted that there were moments in Solange's childhood that still haunt her today, and that Beyoncé may have played a part, even if she didn't realize it at the time. According to insiders, Richard has privately told people that growing up in the Knowles household wasn't all glitz and Grammys. He painted a picture of a home where Matthew's focus on Beyoncé created a quiet storm, leaving Solange feeling sidelined, misunderstood, and constantly compared. And when those feelings bubbled up, they didn't always come out in pretty ways. Now, Richard never flat out trashed anyone, but he made it sound like the emotional distance between Solange and Matthew wasn't just about neglect. It was about years of unspoken hurt. He also hinted that Beyoncé and Solange's relationship, while solid now, went through some serious rough patches that the public has no clue about. And if that's true, it makes Tina's ironclad NDA during her divorce with Richard look a whole lot more strategic. Because if even a fraction of what Richard's hinting at is real, it could flip the entire narrative about the perfect Knowles family upside down and give us a brand new perspective on why Solange has always guarded her peace like a fortress. So, what exactly did Richard hint at that's got everyone side-eyeing the Knowles family right now? Well, according to folks who've been around him, Richard allegedly suggested that Beyoncé wasn't always the picture-perfect big sister, and that some of her actions growing up left Solange feeling small, overlooked, and even resentful at times. Now, he didn't spill every gritty detail, but the way he described it? It sounded like Beyoncé's superstar treatment in the house created an atmosphere where Solange constantly had to fight just to be seen. Richard reportedly said there were times when Solange would get scolded for things Beyoncé could get away with. Little moments that added up over the years until they became full-blown emotional scars. And here's the kicker. Richard implied that some of Solange's most infamous public moments might have been her way of pushing back after years of feeling overshadowed. While he didn't name the elevator incident directly, the shade was there, and fans didn't miss it. If even a slice of what Richard's saying is true, it explains so much. Why Solange is fiercely protective of her space, why she doesn't overshare, and why her bond with Matthew still feels complicated at best. And with this kind of tea floating around, it's no wonder Tina locked Richard under that NDA, because if he went fully unfiltered, the perfect family image could shatter overnight. And here's the wildest part. Sources say Richard hasn't even told everything yet. Word is, he's still sitting on a stash of stories from his time inside the Knowles family that could send shockwaves through the industry if they ever got out. People close to him claim he's hinted about situations that happen behind closed doors, moments that could completely change how the public sees Beyoncé, Solange, and even Matthew. Some insiders swear he's protecting certain details, not just because of Tina's NDA, but because the fallout could be massive. We're talking career-altering revelations, strained alliances, and family dynamics that would leave fans stunned. And the fact that he's even teasing this information has the Bayhive on edge. Because if Richard ever decided to spill without holding back, it could turn into the biggest celebrity family scandal of the decade. For now, he's keeping it just vague enough to avoid breaking that legal wall. But one wrong move, one slip of the tongue, and the Knowles' carefully crafted image could come crashing down in real time. So the question is, how much longer can Richard keep these secrets bottled up before someone pushes him to finally let it all out? It's still very much a work in progress, but Solange herself has said she now sees more clearly the kind of trauma her family went through, and how it was almost passed down like a chain reaction. She's talked about existing in certain spaces where she felt like the only one, and how that shaped her entire view of the world, race, and identity. That kind of pressure doesn't just fade overnight. And sadly, Matthew's obvious favoritism didn't make things any easier. Growing up, Solange had to navigate feeling overlooked. And according to Richard Lawson, she allegedly carried not just a grudge toward Matthew, but even toward Beyoncé for being the golden child in the family. Imagine how heavy that must have felt, competing with a superstar in your own home. But here's the thing, Solange never let that define her. She built her own career piece by piece, scratch by scratch, proving she could stand tall without anyone's shadow blocking her shine. Thanks to Tina's early push for therapy, some of that old resentment never got the chance to take over completely. And while Richard claims Solange still feels flashes of that hurt now and then, things today are far better than they could have been. Now I want to hear from you. What's your take on all this? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs the tea, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because trust me, you're gonna want to see the next video. See you there.